What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? In middle school we were asked to draw our homes for some assignment and hand it in at the end of class. A popular, extremely wealthy kid that sat behind me raised his hand and smugly asked the teacher for another sheet of paper because he couldn't draw it all on one page. His friends just snickered, but I was cringing. Even at 12 I remember thinking it was such a snobby thing to say. I work for a dentist and her son is a spoiled brat. He was at the office one day because she had to bring him to an appointment later that day. He got bored and went out wandering around some of the local shops. He came back a little while later and without any preamble walked up to her and said, "Give me $80. She asked him what it was for and he just repeated himself and she gave it to him. That's some really bad parenting there. My fraternity brother's monthly allowance of $2,000 was cancelled from his parents because he made a few F's. He then called his aunt for a separate allowance. That's not an allowance, that's a salary. My friend literally throws away his change because he hates holding coins. Doesn't matter if it's 99 cents, he'll throw it away. That crap adds up. Like, in the bin? In the trash. The Nintendo DS just came out. It was like $150 and my family lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment and drove a 20-year-old car that was always breaking down. We ate those cheap bags of Walmart beans and rice for months at one point. I expressed the desire to own one after my friend said he had one and I got, "Why can't your parents just buy you one? I don't get it, it's dirt cheap." He didn't want to be my friend after that anymore, literally avoided me and made fun of me for the rest of the year behind my back. I'm still salty about it. Maybe not rich kid syndrome, but middle class kid syndrome. Frick that kid. One of my college classmates wrecked his Range Rover over winter break and came back in an Aston Martin. In college I wrecked my 1998 Toyota and came back in a 1998 Toyota with the front bumper missing. Went to school with a crazy rich kid. His parents divorced and each decided to buy his love. Mommy owned a real estate agency, so she got him a license and spoon-fed him enough sales for a six-figure income. The dad then bought him a magazine. Yes, the dad bought a magazine for his 24-year-old cokehead son to run. Worked about as well as you'd imagine. My fiance's cousin. He managed to crash 4 cars while still in high school because his father would replace them. When he moved on to college, he got kicked out of several apartments for owning a dog when they weren't permitted. He told me he didn't care though, since his father also funded his continuous stream of new housing. Someone's sister got $600 shoes, so the parents got the other kid shoes of the same price to stop their complaining. Edit. It was a birthday present for the first kid, I should have said that. Knew this one guy at my college who didn't understand why everybody is so worked up about student loans. I remember him saying something along the lines of, "Why don't people just pay the tuition up front?" He was also quite sheltered. So my best friend's wife teaches at a ritzy $40,000 per year private school. As in, $40,000 a year for elementary and middle school. I think the HS is like $50,000 plus. Well, she teaches 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember, and she said she always goes around the class after the summer break and asks them what they did over the summer, and she particularly remembers one kid complaining about how much his summer sucked because he was stuck on his parents' yacht all summer and they didn't even take it to anywhere cool, just Italy. I knew a girl whose allowance was $90 a day. She got into trouble so they cut it to $90 a week. How old was she? Assuming this was high school, how did she manage to spend $30,000 a year? She was a teenager. She lived in Manhattan, so that explains a bit. XOXO Gossip Girl. This kid back in high school was whining, I mean literally whimpering, that he had to wait something like 6 weeks for his custom-built BMW to come over from Germany. If that was me, I'd be surprised it only took 6 weeks to custom build a car and ship it from another country. I don't really know anything about cars, that just seems like a short time period to custom build and ship such a large item. I've waited longer than that for 99p crap on eBay. Went to HS with this insufferably spoiled kid. Family had a couch in their home's elevator. And classical European sculpture, this was in the US. Kid talked down to about the less fortunate on a regular basis. Once made fun of me for picking a coin up off the ground. Depression era mentality, see a penny, pick it up. Then all day you'll have good luck. Richie rich mentality, see a penny, let it be. Who knows who touched it before me? Worked with this kid who was a good kid, but completely disconnected from financial reality for most people. He'd just moved out west from another state and was trying to get on like a normal adult. He went to buy a new car and was shocked that they couldn't just bill his dad for it, since they didn't know him. He ordered a bottle of wine at a restaurant and the sommelier said certainly, sir. Then the sommelier whispered, just for your knowledge, sir, the bottle is $700. He looked straight at him and asked, is that a lot? The sommelier honestly didn't know how to answer. Good kid, and he got a lot better, but he just didn't know. Once he casually told his mom he needed some help with bills and she deposited $20,000 into his account. Apparently there was this 15-year-old girl who was going on an exotic vacation to some Pacific island or something. But her favorite show was on TV the day of their flight, and she really wanted to see it. Her parents delayed the flight so that she could watch an episode of her favorite show. A guy looked at my $2,000 beta car in college and commented that it must have been really cheap and guessed $15,000. Lol, I'd have offered to sell it to him as a demolition car or something for that price. Stonks. In high school a kid was bragging that he got in his third fender bender in his old car, 3 years old, that his parents gave him but he hated, so his parents were buying him an entirely new, current year, car to incentivize him to drive better. Hey son, you wrecked your new car? Well, fine. We're getting you a new one hoping you'll drive better. Genius. This girl would always brag about how she's been to every continent except Antarctica and that she's visited so many countries. Then she wondered why people called her the rich kid and insisted she wasn't rich. Lots of rich people deny it. They don't want to feel bad about their money so they convince themselves they're middle class. She was probably just parroting her parents. Friend got a theater with an arcade built over their family's 12-car garage. Parents didn't want the 5-year-old sister to be jealous, so they hired an architect to design and build her a fully functioning playhouse with a bathroom, AC, and bedroom. Just the tip of the iceberg with this family though. Guy buys $500 headphones from a vending machine cause he lost his old pair. Like who buys from a freaking tech vending machine impulsively? I worked at a Starbucks and we hired a new guy, who I was training. At one point, I had to show him how to clean the restrooms. I grab the bleach and hand him a pair of gloves and he looks at me in disgust and says, "We don't have a maid to clean the bathrooms?" He quit the next day lol. Luckily the only rich kids I knew were the most outstandingly well-behaved boys I've ever met. I was a youth leader in a ministry for middle schoolers, and I think the worst it ever got was them being mildly disruptive at times. But these kids had a literal half-sized basketball court in their basement, along with a basement the size of a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment, an arcade, a fully stocked second fridge. Don't even get me started on the house itself and the yard. This place easily would list at least as $1 million home. But they would share with all the kids in the group and never ever look down on anyone for not having money like them. These boys even helped me change a flat tire on my car because they felt it was useful to know how. They literally could probably afford a tow truck and a tire repair all in the same day if it ever happened to them. They were so well grounded that it made me feel like I was the spoiled brat at times. I could absolutely survive on my own. My parents just pay for my food and house but I pay for everything else. If I got a job I could pay for my food and house too, said at 18, in the middle of a discussion between two middle-class peers who were talking about saving money because they had to pay for their own college and living expenses. About 5 minutes prior to this conversation, both peers had ordered the cheap dinner options and declined a shopping trip later that night, while rich girl was talking non-stop about buying the best most expensive souvenirs for her friends. Once tried working a regular person retail job and quit within a couple weeks as it just wasn't right and I didn't like it. Reed had actual responsibilities for the first time. Moved cross country for an 8-month education course where her parents pay food, rent, and school. They also gave her a debit card which replenishes up to $500 when it hits $50. She still posts Snapchats with captions of that broke person life over pictures of her getting Starbucks every day, and insists she could survive on her own. Constantly suggests the most expensive options for meals, activities, etc. and tax on things like we can just split the bill. I know you're saving, but it's just amount at least $50. You'll be fine, right? Then gets upset when people can't afford to spend time with her, or when someone dares to suggest that she helps cover costs. Thanks for watching. Do you know any rich kid syndrome stories? Share them in the comments below. Stonks.